Yeah.
You don't, it's not going to be when you lose that weight or make that salary or find that partner. You belong here right now. Does that mean that you don't have room to grow? No, of course not, right? Like we all want to grow and evolve,
Hmm.
but don't wait for those things in your mind to happen before you actually start walking in self-inclusion. And so I just want to encourage people, like, you belong here, you are valued, you are worthy as you are. And
Hmm.
it's not going to take anything else for that to be true.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Simple Marketing Solutions podcast. Do you feel like you're struggling with your marketing efforts? Wanting to simplify or automate your marketing process, but not sure where to start? Well, look no further than the Simple Marketing Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Amita, and this is going to be your journey towards success in marketing your business. This podcast is the ultimate destination for small business owners just like you, looking for help and inspiration for their digital marketing efforts. So, tune in every Wednesday to the Simple Marketing Solutions podcast, where you will reach your goals alongside us. Let's grow your business together. And don't forget to share this podcast with 2 to 3 of your friends so that they too can benefit from the podcast. Also remember to click subscribe so that you get notified every week when a new podcast lands. Did you also know that we have a video podcast of this? Jump onto our YouTube channel. The link is in the show notes, and check us out on video. Today, I warmly welcome Beth Ruffin, who is the CEO of the Everyday Inclusionist, which is a boutique consulting firm focused on teaching leaders how to include themselves and others. She spent 20 years in corporate America before realizing her dream of entrepreneurship. Beth is committed to making the world more inclusive. She is also the host of a podcast called You Belong Here with Beth Ruffin, which is really focused on helping women realize their true potential. Beth is also a published author of 2 books, Get Up and You Belong Here. I cannot wait for today's topic, where we're going to be discussing inclusion and self-inclusion more specifically. So let's not wait any longer and let's welcome Beth to the show. So welcome, Beth, to the show. I am really interested in this topic of self-inclusion. Like I just mentioned before, it's something that I feel as females in business, we don't talk enough about, but there is a lot of value to be had when we do understand it and start putting that in place. So for our listeners out there that may not be familiar with this term self-inclusion, did you want to let us know a little bit about what it is?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me here. So, self inclusion is the act of including yourself. It is if you really take inclusion and flip it around. So, with the work that I do in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging space, I'm talking with people and I'm telling them, how can you include people who are different from you? How can you make them feel like they belong? How can you make sure they have a seat at the table? And that still puts the power in the hands of people who are already in power, because
Mm,
now we're waiting around for them to include us.
mm,
And so self-inclusion is really about including yourself. It's about fostering your own sense of belonging. So I talk about it in terms of, how do you advocate for yourself? How do
mm,
you speak up, negotiate, right? All of these things that will help you get that seat at the table. And if they're still not willing to give you a seat at the table, then how do you go build your own?
mm.
Because
Yeah,
I think a lot of us are tired of begging to be seen and heard and valued.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I think you've really captured that really well with how you described it, because it's, I think, important, especially in this day and age, where if you're not feeling like you're being included, well, what are the options? Because there are options. Sometimes we feel like there's nothing and that we just have to stick it out. But that's not true, right? There are things that we can do in our own power.
Always, we always have options. And again, sometimes that option is, I can't do this anymore, so I need to go and try something else, right? But that's within our control. And like I said, we need to stop waiting around
Yeah.
for life to
Yeah.
happen to us.
Yeah. Exactly. And taking that control, taking that power back, and not giving it away to others to make those decisions for us, because we could be sitting around forever if that is the case, and missing out on an opportunity to live our lives the way that we want, and to live it from a place that we value as well, where we feel like we're contributing back to society too, and where we feel, our message is being heard.
Absolutely.
And, Beth, I think we touched a little bit on it, but, for you, what have you seen as the reason of why this is so important now for us to start paying attention?
You know, I'll talk about my personal journey and then I'll kind of
Yeah.
expand. But so I turned 45 a couple of months ago. And if you think about lifespan, that's like right smack dab middle at middle age, right? So I'm like halfway through. I've really been reflecting on the first half of my life and what do I want the second half of my life to look like.
Hmm.
And I spent so much time that first half of my life begging others to see me, to value me. And I just think about, where could I be in life right now if I would have gotten this message sooner? So I have a 15-year-old daughter. I am constantly talking to her about this message because I don't want it to take her 45 years to get to this point. And, as we think about the world and what's going on, I believe self-inclusion is how we create equity. Because how long has this work been going on? People have been doing this work for decades.
Yeah.
They say that with pay equity, here in the States, they say with
Hmm.
pay equity, if we keep moving at the pace that we've been moving, that we won't see pay equity for 300 years.
That's a scary number, honestly, to think of
It's,
it in
yeah,
that term.
it's, it's kind of like disappointing, right?
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
like, I'm doing a lot of work. I may never see the fruit of my work.
Yeah. And neither will your daughter or her
Right.
kids, right?
Right. But how
Yeah.
can we accelerate that?
Mm.
So because obviously the way we've been doing it is not working. So how do we
Mhm.
accelerate that? So now how do women walk in and say, this role is worth this much. This is how
Yeah.
much I want. Or, as a business owner, when do we say, I'm gonna increase my prices because I'm worth it?
Yeah.
I remember when I first started my business, I remember I was taking anything, like a cup of coffee, sure, I'll come do a presentation, right?
Yeah.
But we have to tie, our success as women, it affects society
Yeah.
because we're primary caretakers. We're taking care of the home, right? We're investing, we're, giving to charitable contributions. So
Mm.
by us being in a great position, society becomes better.
Mm.
And so I just think that we're seeing a lot of things happening legislatively
Mm.
where rights are being taken away and things are being rolled back. And I think that self-inclusion is the way that we
Mm.
find equity and fight back against injustice.
Yeah. Um, it's a very valuable point, and to again, look at it from self-inclusion as a way of speeding up this process that is, on a trajectory that we're never really going to get there if we continue the way that it is. But I love the fact that there is something that we can do, that we can actually participate in to get this ball rolling faster, to ask for what we know we deserve. We are all, educated. We've got strong careers behind us. We've got strong experience behind us. And when we're looking at working for somebody as an employee, or like you said, within your own business, of just putting your prices up and asking for what you're worth, and remembering that you do have, sorry, my throat, something of value to share, and that people want it. And people not even just want it, but they need to hear it. They need what you have. I think it's so important for us to start doing more of that. For you, Beth, what would you recommend we start? How do we start?
Yeah, so I have a framework, and the first step in that framework is inspect. And that's really about, do I find myself waiting around to be included? Am I not raising my hand and stepping up to opportunities like I should be? And I also ask people during that inspection step, it's like, get to the root of, I call it your unbelonging. Like, where did that start? How did that start? Because we know, there's so many things out here. We can put bandages, we can cover stuff up, we can fix the outside. But if we haven't fixed that inside piece of us, and so it's really a lot of self-reflection. Why do I not feel like I'm worthy enough to do X, Y, Z? And that is hard, right? Like, we run away from that self-introspection, but it's so important.
Yeah, definitely important, especially when we want to live lives to our true selves as well. We have to be able to dig deep and uncover the good and the bad, and be able to work through that and accept, but find those solutions through that introspection as well.
And because honestly, it's funny, I always talk about on social media, when I'm like prettied up, it's a professional photo, and I'll get engagement, but then there'll be times when, makeup's not done, here's, maybe I just jumped on really quickly, I'm being very vulnerable. That is when engagement blows up. People want and need authenticity.
Absolutely.
And they need that from us, and so during this inspection process, it's really about getting to that authenticity within yourself. Getting to, when we take everything else away, one question I ask, and I'll ask you, if we take away all of your titles, who are you? Without any of the roles, without any of the titles, who are you at the core?
Yeah. If I had to actually answer that question right now, I guess it actually brings up quite a bit of, emotion attached to that. And the thing that comes to my mind is that I'm just a woman on this earth trying to make headway of just living life to the fullest in a way that feels real for me, and also is from a place where I'm not doing harm to others, because I think that that's also really important, is how we're interacting with our fellow human beings, and everything within our environment, from the animals to all that's happening with our environment and climate and stuff like that as well. So, but just a pure single woman here on this planet.
Yeah. It does bring up emotions. Like when I
It
think about it,
does.
because what do we do when we meet someone? We're like, I'm a podcaster. I'm this.
Yeah,
I'm that.
exactly.
It's like, and so we have to be able to find value in who we are without the titles.
Mm, mm.
In
It's
that
true.
description you gave, and I resonate with that, right? Like we're on two sides of the world. We come from
Yeah,
different backgrounds, but a woman out here trying to like make an impact without causing harm.
yeah,
I relate to that.
yeah, yeah.
And then once you know that and you've accepted that, then I think it makes it so much easier to walk through life and say, yeah, like I belong here, right? And
Mm,
I'm going to cheer for myself, be my own cheerleader. I'm going to set and keep boundaries. I'm going to speak my mind, and I'm going to know when it's time to walk away from something.
yeah, yeah. You described hitting 45 and the realization of being the halfway mark as we look at it. And I remember, a few years ago going through something similar. And when you talk about self-inclusion, I went through a similar situation in a company where I didn't feel I was being listened to, heard, and my voice wasn't being taken seriously and I wasn't being included. And it did come to that point where you do get a choice. And I chose to pack up and leave and to do something that I knew I was being able to provide the value that I can, and I just see it so many times with people out there, and especially with females, where we do feel stuck, and we feel fear. I think that's probably the biggest thing is what happens if I leave? What if I never find something else? What if I start a business and it's not successful? Um, do you think that doing that work on yourself at that point of time is the most crucial time for that?
Yeah, I always encourage people. I like the what if question, but I like to ask, what if it works? What
Yeah,
if this is what you were meant to do? What if this is the best thing that ever happened to you? Start imagining that.
yeah,
It changes your mindset.
yeah, yeah. It's a real driver, isn't it? To give you that momentum that you need to just move forward and give it a go and give it everything that you have.
Yeah.
For me, that's taken me to where I am now, and I couldn't be happier because I know that I am making that impact. Like I said before, I am helping people, and to me that just fills my cup every day to be able to do that. And I feel that being authentic is definitely something all of us need to become more comfortable with, and stop shying away from it like we do.
Yeah, especially for someone like me who all of my life I wanted to be liked. I didn't, I don't like rejection. Like I want everyone to like me.
Yeah,
Right. And
exactly.
so what do? You find yourself becoming a chameleon so that, different people that experience you different places can like you. But that is exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
You can't keep it up. And it's like the people who are meant to be in your circle, a part of your business, like whatever, the people that are, they will find you.
Yeah,
They will find you when you are your authentic self. And it's really about scarcity versus abundance, because it's like, oh, if I show up in this way, who will I lose? So again, let's turn that thinking. If I
Yeah.
show up as my true self, oh my goodness, who will I be exposed to that maybe I would have never been before?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love the fact of, that we've touched on the importance of reframing those questions that we ask ourselves, because it's so easy to go down the negative rabbit hole, right? And then just keep going. And we don't stop to think about, well, what's the flip side? And that's where the real magic, I think, lies. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And thank you for reminding us that, there is always a flip side to it. Um, Beth, I wanted to ask, in your experience, you've written 2 books, which is absolutely amazing. And you've also got a TEDx presentation that you've done. Did you want to share a little bit about what made you write those books?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have come up with a goal. I don't know where I came up with this from, but I want 1 million people to hear the message of inclusion from me. And so, of course, that you need to have avenues for that to happen. So I think the books and the TEDx speech, that's a way to get in front of more people than I normally would have.
Yeah.
And the first book I wrote was actually my story through sexual assault and how I was an adult and thought that I had dealt with it and I hadn't. And
Mm.
so I had found myself on the couch, like depressed for like a week. I wasn't moving. And the book's name is Get Up. And so it's really about like, you got to get up. Right. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I was even a couple of weeks ago, I was like having a bad day and I was talking to a friend and they were like, you got to get up. And I'm like, oh, they're using this against me. But but to answer, I mean, just to answer your question more simply, it's the
Yeah.
impact. I
Mm.
want to make that impact. And that's, I think, a way that you can do it more than one-on-one conversations.
Mm. Mm. Definitely. And with your podcast as well, that's then another avenue to be able to reach that million, which I love the goal. And I know that you will achieve that sooner than
Yay.
you think.
Thank you.
And Beth, before we wrap up, was there anything else that you wanted to share with our audience?
Yeah, so the title of the second book is You Belong Here, and that's really kind of the
Mm.
tagline for this self-inclusion movement. And I want people to know, listeners to know, you belong here right now, just as you are.
Yeah.
You don't, it's not going to be when you lose that weight or make that salary or find that partner. You belong here right now. Does that mean that you don't have room to grow? No, of course not, right? Like we all want to grow and evolve,
Mm.
but don't wait for those things in your mind to happen before you actually start walking in self-inclusion. And so I just want to encourage people, like, you belong here, you are valued, you are worthy as you are. And
Mm.
it's not going to take anything else for that to be true.
Very, very powerful. Just hearing that and me just sitting here right now and just absorbing that, it feels different. I feel different. I feel like there's a shift. I feel like I can just be more open and be me. And I know that this is where I'm meant to be. So thank you. And I'm sure that every listener out there is going to feel that if they just take the moment to soak it in, breathe in, and remember that you do belong here. Thank you, Beth. I really appreciate that. And was there any, if people wanted to know more about you, we've got your books and I'll put the link in the show notes. Was there any other source of information that you wanted to share with people if they were interested?
Yeah, absolutely. I would ask folks to follow me on social media. Instagram is where I hang out the most. So I'm
Okay.
at the Beth Ruffin there, or they can go to my website, bethruffin.com. I've got some things cooking up. And so we
You.
want to be a part of the community on the, on the list so that when we announce some big things we have coming out, you all can be the first to hear about those things.
Fantastic. That's exciting. I always like to keep my eyes and ears open for new stuff. So that's very exciting. Thank you, Beth. Thank you for being here today and sharing from that place of authenticity and helping us to connect in with what's really important for us as human beings on this earth and how we can continue to make that impact, realizing that we are meant to be here and we do belong. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.